one of the things that we know is when a client comes along and they're presenting a problem with their back, it's not necessarily the back that is the problem. We still need to have a look at that and be sure about that, but we need to also consider the other muscle groups that could be holding that in place. What I find in my practice is very often that clients come along and they're pretty round-shouldered. But round shoulders is a really good sign showing me that something's going on. When shoulders are pulled forward like that, it's a good indication that the muscles behind the chest, behind the ribs, that those muscles are really tight and they've come together, they've pulled the shoulders forward like that, and the client says they've got a bad back. Well, yeah, the back is hurting, but only because they're like that. And that needs to be fixed. That's not something that always goes away. And if people leave it, then they can end up all hunched up, and you can walk along the street and see lots of people that are hunched up. And I know they just need to be able to release those muscles, allow the shoulders to go back, and then the muscles in the back are going to be a lot more relaxed. And once we've decided that it is the case, a good thing to do is to look at the client again. Really cool. Look at the client when they're laying down. If you notice, Heather's shoulder is up here. It's quite a way forward. Where it ought to be is down there. The shoulder ought to be down there. But naturally, because of the tight muscles, Heather's shoulder sits over there. So we know that there's something going on and we need to find out what it is. It's exactly the same on this side. Heather's shoulder is up here. There's a tight muscle one, and then you can see that's holding up the shoulder. So the area just beneath the rib cage there. If you imagine you've got your ribs and you glide your hand over the ribs, it should be nice and grooved. You should be able to feel the grooves of the rib cage and flesh. When the muscles are really, really tight, that surface becomes a lot flatter because the muscles underneath are tight and they're pushing up. So with Heather, if I just put a little bit of pressure there, tell me what the difference is. Is that tender? Yeah. How tender?
Quite tender.
That tender?
Out.
Out, okay. And in there? And in there?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we know is that these muscles behind the rib cage are really tight and they need to be released. And a good safe way to do that is to apply some acupressure. So that's finding the right point, just applying some pressure. Obviously we're going to avoid the breast tissue because that's not appropriate, and there's no benefit anyway because it's not appropriate, and pressing hard in that area is just going to hurt. So what we want to do is get to the muscles that we can get to. It's obviously easier on men than it is on women. Men have the same problem. And then put a little bit of pressure, hold and release. Find the next one. And what we're working is in between the ribs. Hold and release. Now, we know that Heather had this car accident and she used to go and see a physio, and he used to do, she wasn't it? And she used to do acupressure, and when Heather said to me, yeah, they always did acupressure, it did make me feel a lot better. But in fact, they weren't doing it on the front, they were doing it on the back. And yes, that absolutely can help, but what's not happening is finding the area that is causing the problem. That's an effect area. What we're interested in are the causes. What's the cause that's creating that bad effect? So again, just tighten this, a little bit of pressure, and a little bit of pressure, and we would then work those areas to help that to release. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to apply a bit of pressure to the muscle just at the top of the chest by the shoulder. So we're going to put a bit of pressure in there, hold on to Heather's head, and we're going to just stretch, gently stretch out that muscle. Stretch that muscle. And we're going to do that a few times. And apply a little bit of pressure. You can feel the tight muscle in there. A little bit of pressure. Stretch out that exact muscle that's just in there. You can feel the tightness in there. Stretch that out. You can feel it loosen under you. Okay. And then the same on this side. Just going to stretch out that muscle. And then we're going to apply a bit of pressure to the muscle just under the arm, the lats. So a bit of pressure, squeeze that and stretch, squeeze and stretch. But this is where Heather's been doing the stretching exercise that we gave her, because they are so much better than they were before. Still tight in there. And if you imagine that you've got your tight chest muscle there, your tight back muscle under there, you've got your muscle that comes down there, your lats, and I call it the link muscle, if you like, and we need to release that to help this release and to help back release. If you just work on one of them, then the other two are still going to be tight and the problem is still going to be there. In fact, it's just going to come back tighter anyway. So we need to release all of those areas to make sure that Heather's comfortable and her shoulders start to go back to where they're supposed to be. We do that every time that we see Heather, and if you're wondering how long it's been, we've seen Heather four times so far, and probably another 4 treatments. Heather's going to be in really, really good condition, remembering that she'd had 75 treatments previous that had been ineffective for her.